Welcome to Muskegon Rising, a community service project of the Muskegon Rotary Club. Our purpose is to create lasting positive change. We've been doing that here since 1916. So, let's get started.
Hello, I'm your host Aaron Maike for today's episode of Muskegon Rising. Today I'm here with Dr. Paul Isely, the Associate Dean and Professor at the Seidman School of Business at Grand Valley State University. Welcome, Dr. Isely.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I want to tee this up a little bit. Muskegon's identity has always been anchored to the water, from its industrial roots to today's vision of a vibrant, accessible waterfront. With the Mart Dock and 3rd Street Wharf proposals on the horizon, I really look forward to discussing how redevelopment, public access, sustainable growth can shape the next chapter of Muskegon's economy.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for the city.
It is. I say it's a generational opportunity.
It certainly is, and it's really exciting to see the energy around even just thinking about where we're going.
Yes, lots of opinions. So again, our history here in Muskegon as a port city, it's really shaped its economic identity. How might the redevelopment of the 3rd Street Wharf and Fisherman's Landing campground build upon that legacy?
Well, really, Muskegon has always been about access to the water, whether it's the industry, whether it's individuals. As I come here and even go through surveying at the public boat ramps, one of the most amazing things to me is at the lunch hour, people just come and sit in their car and watch the lake. And we don't see that in other cities to the same extent. And so it's that tie to the water that's important. And what we see across the Lakeshore from Holland up to Ludington and is that this is really a blended economy, one that does the touristy things around the water, but also has industry and relatively strong industry. And that blended economy will lead to strength in the next 10 years. So finding ways to change that, to get people more access to the water, is going to improve the opportunities for businesses, particularly downtown.
And I think what a lot of people don't realize is most of that waterfront property in Muskegon, from its lumber roots to industrial era, is that it's private. So really it takes a lot of negotiation to make access available to the general public, to our waterways.
Right. So it's really about that connection and being able to get there, to have a wide variety of people able to get there. And in some ways, that strength for Muskegon, those industrial docks, was the strengths many, many years ago, is now hindering the ability of downtown to grow because downtown's not connected to the water. It's there, you can see the water, but it's not connected to the water.
That's a great point. So how do you see balancing tourism gains? We're seeing tons of tourism in Muskegon, with stable year-round industrial and port operations benefiting Muskegon.
Yeah, what we see here is that over the last 10 years, as the lake has gotten cleaner, the number of visits are up nearly 500,000. And that's an amazing increase in just a relatively short period of time. But where we're at now is we're sort of constrained. We're sort of constrained by the fact that people are coming here for access to the water, but all the points to the water are maximized out. So if you think about the campground is a great resource. It is amazing for the people who are there using it, but it sort of maxed the number of people who can use it. If you think about the trail systems, they're there, but they're away from downtown. And so really it's about how can we help visitors see here and be here and touch the lake. All right. The industrial part needs to be there. In today's world, it doesn't have to be right on the lake because we have electricity and things that allow us to have access to things. But we do need access to the materials and things you can get from the lake. So you still having access to a port that allows industrial activity is something that Muskegon has that much of the Lakeshore does not.
Awesome. You mentioned Fisherman's Landing campground. Do you in your studies of Muskegon, do you know the actual economic impact of that Fisherman's Landing campground and what it does for our local economy?
Well, I haven't actually studied the campground, all right? We've studied things around the campground. We know the campground has, 109 spaces. We know that it's open a certain amount of time of the year. And we know the number of people who normally show up at campgrounds. So this is really looking at probably somewhere around 50,000 visitor days. And 50,000 visitor days comes out to somewhere between 2.5 and 3 million on the area.
Okay, awesome. So part of this process has been community and non-community voices. And what role do you think that those voices should play in economic development and redevelopment?
Community voices are imperative for economic development. This is your town. And development can happen in many ways and in many forms, and there are multiple paths that are good. Without that interaction with the community, you can't find a direction that benefits the majority of the community, and that's what's important.
That's outstanding because the community voices have been very loud in this process, and that's really great to see, and that it's important in driving that forward is critical.
Yes, people have to be able to voice how they perceive this. In the end, changes will happen, and to the extent that those changes can benefit the most and hurt people the least is really important. And without that feedback, the leaders in the area don't know how to do that.
So I want to go back to a comment you made, and this wasn't on our questions, but that our city isn't really developed to get people to the lake well. How do you think that hinders perceptions of people's access to the lake?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at where people congregate up and down the Lakeshore, they're congregating in cities where essentially they are downtown and a few steps they're on the lake. Here in Muskegon, it's a car drive or it's a bike ride or you have to own something to be there. And that limits the ability for businesses downtown to leverage the lake being there. So as access could be improved to downtown, then those visits start having a more and more power, all right? So if I can come here and spend an entire day and I have access to a restaurant and they're shopping and I can be on the lake at the same time, it changes the amount of money I'll spend here. And that money, when it gets spent here, then bounces around and helps everyone in the community.
That's a great economic forecast for our community. It's a great visualization. How might shifting our port operations from that 3rd Street area to that Fisherman's Landing create new job opportunities and infrastructure investment and continue to retain tourism?
Right. So moving that dock retains the ability to bring in those industrial goods. So we don't lose that. All right. We don't lose access to the lake as far as public landings and things. So that's important. So what we're trading off here is a relatively unique campground at this point, and a downtown area which now has the ability to develop into the lake and bring people's experiences right down to the lake where they can see it, they can smell it, they can feel it. And that, in our experience, is what leads to improved property values, it leads to improved recreational values, and it leads to improved business impact.
Amazing. How can redevelopment integrate? We've seen a tremendous environmental restoration, the delisting of Muskegon Lake. How can we ensure that these structured redevelopments don't create more pollution in the lake?
Well, and that's really, really important. the perception of Muskegon Lake as cleaning is now drawing more people here. We're seeing, for some of the first times that I've heard, people moving their slips from Grand Haven to Muskegon because they now feel that the resource here is beautiful enough and clean enough and safe enough for them to be here. That I have studied extensively, and we found that environmental improvement that we've seen across the south side of the shore has added thousands of dollars to people's property values, particularly in the Nims neighborhood and down towards the Sappy. So that's a big deal for us. That's lots of additional property value that gives people in Muskegon wealth in order to make further decisions to move forward in their life. That's a big deal.
It's funny, as you were talking about the reputation of Muskegon's water, it could be an urban legend, but I've heard that the once Holiday Inn, now Delta, was built the way that it is because they didn't want the rooms facing the water because of what it looked like. So it's really cool to hear that change, right? And now people want to see the water. They want to be on the water. Hot topic right now, federal and state funding. Federal government is still shut down. We need to get that back together. But how important is that coupled with private investment to continue these types of investments in Muskegon and up and down the Lakeshore?
Well, government needs to be there in order to get a start, get the ball rolling. The government creates the playing field. And once the playing field is set, consumers and businesses can move forward confidently and do the investment that needs to happen. So without some of that front-end work by government, some of that front-end seed money, some of that front-end ability, it's hard to move things quickly, and it's hard to move things in a way that benefits all people. It's simple to sell a plot of land and have someone build a multi-million-dollar mansion on it. It's harder to create a space where there's walkable area for people of all walks of life to go through it. And as a result, that takes more thought process, it takes more planning, and it takes more money.
It sounds inclusion is very intentional, and it takes a lot of people to make that happen. I love the aspect of building $1 million house. You're only pleasing 2 people potentially, or 1, versus trying to make your community a whole and get everybody down to that waterfront in this case.
Right. I mean, part of the being of Muskegon is the lake. I mean, it exists here because of the lake. People want to be near the lake. Increasing access to the lake is important. So if we start looking at a space near a city where there's access to a lake, and we see that around the United States where access to the water, whether it's a river like in Milwaukee or whether it's access to the lake like Grand Haven, it results in more people coming. And so if we think about it, that area could draw in hundreds of thousands of additional people and bring money from outside. In addition, it creates a space, if it's done properly, where people from all around Muskegon can now access the lake in a new way.
You talked about property values, so I'm going to adjust this next question a little bit. We've seen the development of Adelaide Point, and that continues to grow, and there's more development going on there. This 3rd Street Wharf, and then you mentioned the Sappy Plant property as well. All of those, do you see one of them or all of them as like linchpin projects that will just kind of set Muskegon ablaze for development for more people?
Well, I think that they all have potential to add, and in some ways change our relationship with the lake. But in order for them to succeed, realistically, the downtown of Muskegon has to succeed. If you don't have a vibrant place for people to go, to live, to breathe, they're not going to move there. All right. People are like, well, if they move here, we'll get that. The answer is no, we need to have that or they won't move here. And so all of those have potential to give places for people to live and work close to the lake. But they have to have access to the lake in a public manner, and they have to have access to that lake near the places where they're going to be doing business.
Does this proposal between the city and the MART dock, do you believe it provides greater access to the residents of Muskegon?
Well, it provides different access. It will provide more access. It will provide, because more people will be able to take advantage of it. If we look at a space where it's sort of connected to a business area, to an area where it's publicly available and open, the trade-off here is that versus a campground now, which has very deep access to a fewer number of people. So in reality, we're trading off very deep access for a group of people to having more access, but probably less, to a greater number of people. And so that's where that tension is that we hear here in the city, is that do we want to have that very deep access for that group of people, or do we want to have that broader access for a wider group of people? And that's a hard thing to do.
What I love about talking with you, whether I hear you at an economic summit, you're always rooted in data, and you always use numbers and research to make sure that what you're saying is accurate based on the numbers. So numbers as we look at these projects that Muskegon's taking on, what type of metrics would you use to gauge success 5-10 years out?
Right. So one of the things I would want to be looking at, particularly as a lot of this is around opening the lake up, is visits to the lake. So it's something that's really important to measure. It's important to stay on. It's important to see whether we see vibrant business district, and is that drawing people in? It'd be important for me to see that we're now having new housing starts in Muskegon, as opposed to a very stagnant community that was here for decades. That is important, and if that's happening, then we're going to be looking for those jobs to be here. And what we find in these areas that do this sort of tourism-y, industrial type of combination is this works out very well for families because we have two income earners, and those two income earners are rarely in the same field. And having a diversified economy allows them both to be able to work and exist in one place.
So that's really amazing. That's really a key point. My wife and I both worked in accounting and finance, so we're the odd in your description. But I very rarely know a husband and a wife or a couple that work in the same career field. So I'm learning every day. Talk a little bit about what you would see the waterfront specifically looking like. We know you've said a strong city is going to drive everything that happens, a strong downtown in Muskegon. And I think we're doing good things there, but what would the waterfront look like in 10 or 15 years?
Well, I mean, there's lots of thoughts on what that will be, right? But in reality, that space is primed for retail to get closer to the water. It's primed for possible attractions that are closer to the water. It's primed to really create a gathering spot. And so that's what I perceive when I see it. And if it's done well, it will do all of those things. And as a result, it will start becoming more of the focus of what downtown Muskegon is, as opposed to a boundary that prohibits access to that water.
Great insight. Dr. Paul Isely, Associate Dean and Professor at the Seidman School of Business. We've covered a lot. I have probably hundreds more questions I could think of with you right now, but is there one thing that you think we haven't covered that our listeners and viewers might need to know?
Well, I think that it's really important to reiterate the fact that if we can connect the downtown to the water, what we see in other cities is the amount of economic activity increases very quickly. And it increases quickly because you draw more people to the city, you draw more people to live here, and you draw more people to play here. And all of that has spillover effects that are good. And this is right now about the only opportunity you have to connect your downtown to the water.
Dr. Isely, thank you so much. I know you're very busy, but I appreciate your time and coming on our podcast today.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Muskegon Rising, a podcast supported by the Muskegon Rotary Club. If you think something amazing is going on in our community, please email us at muskegonrising@muskegonrotary.org.